with a short Touch Designer tutorial on how to get started with texture-based operators. So when you open up Touch Designer for the first time, this will most likely be what you see. And I think we should just jump right into some of the layout. So it's really similar to Houdini. So in order to bring in new operators, new nodes, we're going to click Tab. And today we want to create a slit scan effect, which is basically kind of like a glitchy, warping based visual. And in order to do that, it's going to be a relatively simple network. But first thing we can do is plop in a video device in order to get input from our camera. Okay. Awesome. Sorry, I'll move this out of the way. Okay, here I am. So now in order to achieve this effect, what we need to do is have some data in order to manage these frames of our input that we want to manipulate. So in order to do that, we need to we need to continue this chain of nodes like in Houdini. And in order to do that, I am just clicking and dragging from this output that's on the right-hand side. And I'm clicking and dragging, and I'm clicking Tab at the same time in order to determine what that child is going to be. And we're going to select Texture 3D. We can read the description here. Texture 3D Top creates a 3D texture map. It saves a series of images in one array of pixels in the Z-axis, I believe. And this is interesting because now we have a node where we're getting some information here on the right. So first we have the type, which just like when you program, it's just what flavor it is. We want it to be a 3D texture. We can turn it on or off, but we want it on. Don't worry about these options. Really, we just care about cache size because this is how many frames are available to us. And based off of our memory and based off of what our computers can handle, we can modify this value. But in order to have a variable to modify this continuously across this project, what we can do is get introduced to different contexts in Touch Designer. So right now, we've been working with texture operators because we are modifying a video, we're modifying an image. Here's some channel operators where we can convert back and forth, but it's kind of handling more input-output type stuff. SOPs, which are surface operators, that's more so when you're dealing with geometry or if you're interested in SDFs, that kind of thing. Mat, these are materials. Dat, like data, more like output stuff, and custom ones. So since we want to be able to reference and modify our number of frames and use this in other parts of the project, we're going to go ahead and create a constant, which I can just type in here, constant, boom, it's going to pop up. I'm going to plop that down, and here we can see the name of the channel. We can see different options for it, but we really only care about sample rate, and we're going to use this value within our Texture 3D, among other places. So how do we do this? One way to do it is to right-click, copy parameter, copy and paste it in. But I like something unique about Touch Designer, just how visual it is. If you highlight your text here, the label, and you drag it, you have this white arrow pop up. And that's basically that's notifying you that you're creating a reference, and you can drag and drop it onto where you want to go. So I'm going to put that on my text 3D, and I'm going to reference cache size. And we can see that just changed from 32 frames to 60. So now we're getting some new information. Great. So now I want to introduce us to another node called Time Machine. And we can read it here. The time machine top combines pixels in a sequence of images stored in a text 3D top, whereas morphing warps an image spatiality in XY. Time machine warps an image only in terms of time, this third dimension of a 3D texture map. So that being said, this takes in two inputs. The first source being the third axis, as it was mentioning, time. In terms of converting this video output into these different frames. But in order to do modification to it, in order to achieve this warping effect, we need another input. And how Time Machine handles it is by doing thresholding logic based off of how black or white the input is. So we can see here some options. We have our black offset, white offset, our sampling mode, sampling units, the W coordinate, or that like third dimension being time. And here we don't really need to mess with anything. We really just care about modifying our black and our white offset. But to keep it simple, let's just work with our black offset for now. So how do we get our second input? There's multiple ways you could do this, and I will show you both, or show you a couple ways. But the one that seems most conducive to me is to get a ramp, like how we've done in in Houdini before. And because we're introduced as black and white image. And we can see, it's like, okay, how can we interpret this image? Knowing that we're going to be doing this thresholding logic, the more black we have in our image, the more ability we have to modify that, or the likelihood of that being warped is increased. The more white we have in the image, the more we're kind of biasing it that way, and like the less extreme our effect is going to be. So in order to kind of distinguish these barriers between this gradient, one thing we can do is to add some limit logic. We're min-maxing essentially. And here, what I think is the easiest way to do this is to go based off of position. And we're just going to introduce some steps for this. So personally, I like to change this to ceiling, and we can already tell, okay, we're getting some more delineation here. And we can modify this to either add more or to add less. Let's add some more to kind of have a more dramatic effect. And let me drag this over. Now we can use this to plug into our time machine node. And here we go. I'm going to add, we can already see it's getting a little crazy. I'm just going to add an out node. And we can kind of zoom in here. And I can, whoa, kind of see this modification happening. So on the most basic level, that's one way to do this, but we can also experiment with things that we're already familiar with, like toolbox functions and noise. So why don't we experiment with noise? And we have just like in Houdini, we have lots of different options. Why don't we let's do random. Yeah. And we can combine this with other operators. We could add some like displacement, and we could displace it by this that we created previously to get something kind of funky looking. Awesome. And we can create another set of a time machine node as well as an out node, just to kind of be more specific about what we're modifying and changing. So let me delete this. Let me hook this all up. Okay, now let's look at this and see how that looks. I think that looks pretty cool. But yeah, so as we can tell, this is less than 10 nodes. This is a really pretty simple node network, but the results we can get are really interesting. So I encourage you to experiment, play around, feel free to explore other contexts as well with chops or materials or different geometry here. Or you can, if you're more into shader programming, feel free to explore with the GLSL stuff. There's so much to do in Touch Designer, and really this exercise is designed to just give you a very brief introduction to what's possible. So thank you for listening, and please reach out on Discord or whatever methods work best for you if you need help. Thank you.